when someone says, what is a benchmark and what is a baseline?
Sure.
I didn't think it was kind of like sustainable or like to the point that, where the project is today. Why only Mac? And why do you hate Windows, man?
Behind every decision, there is a person with a perspective. This is where they get heard. This is The Bottom Line by Scalefusion.
Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Skuti Pritam Kuram, and I'm the VP of Product and Growth here at Scalefusion. Welcome to our first podcast session with Bob. And Bob, I've known Bob for quite some time now, but I've had the opportunity to meet him for the first time when he organized the in-person macOS, the security event at NIST, and I've had the opportunity to meet him and the rest of the team. And so Bob is a heavily accomplished person and a great name within the space. And I know that everyone within the Mac admins community know you, Bob, but I would love for those two people who don't know you, I like for you to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Bob from NIST. I work at NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. I work actually on the operations side at NIST, managing one of 4 on the team that help support and manage the Macs here at NIST. Now, what we've done publicly though is with help from other organizations, contributions from other agencies as well, we've created the macOS Security Compliance Project, and I've sort of become the de facto project lead for the macOS Security Compliance Project, which for those that don't know, it's a easy way to help meet compliance needs on your Apple devices, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to, on behalf of Scalefusion, I want to thank you and of everyone who've contributed to that project because, like you said, it actually helped us build, go from 0 to 1 pretty quickly, like scale pretty easily for us, and all thanks to the hard work that you and your team put in.
That's been our goal, is that and our hope is that MDM products such as yourself will ingest the information that we've created to make it easy for everybody.
Right. Awesome. I know this isn't a typical English question, but I'm very, it's a very confusing question for me when someone says, what is a benchmark and what is a baseline?
Sure. This is something we've been actually trying to get people to really think about as well. So within the project, we have baseline files, rename them, but you have something like CIS, you have something like a disastig.
Right.
Both of those, somebody has decided and said, for example, screensaver must equal 20 minutes, and these other settings have to be turned off. Somebody has made that risk-based decision, and here is how you meet CIS or distig compliance.
Right.
You must have these all equaling exactly that. That is a benchmark. When you as an organization go through and pick and choose what settings that you want on your managed Macs or Windows machines, you have created an internal benchmark to what that is, right? A customized benchmark. A baseline, however, is something like NIST 853, NIST 800-171.
Right.
Satisfaction of all of these rules does not necessarily make sense in an environment. You are trying to meet compliance requirements in the overall greater compliance documents, such as a NIST 853 and ISO 2700,
Right.
kind of a thing. And maybe you meet those controls with some other means, right?
Right.
So it doesn't make sense to necessarily set them on the computer themselves. And as well as in a baseline, there could be potentially competing settings such as SSH on or SSH off.
Right.
And you are nowhere within a NIST 853 document see something that says you must set screensaver to 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And that is really your best bet that something is a baseline versus a benchmark. Is there's no defined values, and it's usually very much a choose your own adventure. Lots of organizationally defined values within it.
Cool.
That's sort of like the big answer of a benchmark versus a baseline. Somebody has decided is a benchmark, and choose your own adventures is a baseline.
Baseline. Perfect. I think that's a great explanation to this question that I keep getting asked. It's like, hey, what's a baseline? What's a benchmark? And especially if you look at the GitHub project, like you said, there's a lot of like baselines and people interchangeably use the word benchmarks and baselines, but I think
Even when you're trying to meet just the state
right.
requirements or CIS, an organization should still make the risk-based decision and not just blindly apply everything. And so, yeah, you should always be making your own customized benchmark, not just clicking one button and call it a day.
I 100% agree. So, so just getting a little bit into the history of how this project came to be, um, and so just a little bit of background. So we started to look at, typical compliance benchmarks. It's like, hey, if I want to be CIS compliant, or like, because looking at a lot of various different compliance projects products out there, um, it sounds very daunting. It sounds very complex.
Yeah.
And for anyone who probably saw the compliance, the guidelines that are published by the government, they're very confusing, and I don't know what to make sense of it. But you guys made it really, really made it easy for everyone to understand, and you kind of also kind of made a judgment on like, hey, this is what it actually means.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about that. Like, how did that journey start? And
Yeah, so I like to say we did the translation of compliance requirement to setting within the system, and that's really what we did, right? I will mostly speak for NIST 853 because it's being NIST, but when you go through and you read some things like I can't even think of a good requirement, but uh, we then actually as a group more or less kind of talked it over sometimes and said, does this make sense? Does this meet this? Because in NIST 853, there's actually only so many things that are technical requirements. There are requirements on like how you're supposed to like put a lock on a filing cabinet, right? To lock up PII information. That's not a technical control, but um, is encryption enabled and set, that is a technical control, right? So that kind of a thing. We really did just kind of we started with the disastig itself actually years ago, and they had a mapping within there to 853 controls. Somebody at one point long ago had decided these, right? And we reviewed those because some of them didn't really make sense when we went back and read it, and some were fine. And as time has gone, we've re-reviewed things, looked at things, talked to the NIST CISO, Blair Heiserman, and others around government that we have as contacts, and kind of tried to figure out what does this mean? What do you think this means? And does say disabling airdrop meet that requirement?
right. Wow. Yeah, because like I said before, like that actually helped us because I think you've done a lot of that legwork in interpreting what that actually means and what controls on the device actively meets that criteria. Because I think that was super helpful. Um, so I guess one of the questions that I wanted to know the answer to is like, why did Bob really care about this? Like you as a person, like what made you?
So it's a it's an interesting thing. There it's two pieces sort of to that. Is one, I am somebody who sees gaps in things and sometimes sees how could we make this better? How could we solve this problem? Um, the compliance and this goes building automation for my daily kind of job, or little Swift learning Swift to build applications to do certain things.
Right.
I, a teacher in college once said, "Good sysadmins build the tools that they need," um,
That's
and it's true. And so the compliance thing, though, it didn't seem it seemed like a problem, but didn't wasn't. It was a problem because it was so hard, but it was a
right.
problem that I think was just done this way, and so nobody really saw it as a problem per se. This is
Like
just how it is. You have your spreadsheet, you have uh, your PDF, and there we go. And compliance was done via PDF
right.
or however it was, and either somebody had to try to build some sort of uh, script. Jamf used to host on their GitHub, like, here's how to be CIS compliant using our product or whatever. And they build all these great scripts, and that's fine, but that, you know, needed for customization needed a lot of work, and
Right.
it was very Jamf specific.
Right.
Not everybody uses Jamf or even was managed at that time
Yeah.
out of standalone machines. And so I would say that this was how it was done. And then our system engineer, Jamie Richardson from Apple, sort of had this idea of let's do some sort of collaboration on this. Let me get together my government customers that I
Right.
think could handle this and make this better. Because specifically, the biggest problem actually for Mac OS was that the disastig would be 6 to 9 months, even a year behind. So Mac OS, I don't know, uh, 10.13 comes out, and you're still have potentially even like the 10.12 or 10.11 guidance um, that you're trying to apply. CIS was usually very behind, and CIS didn't really shouldn't necessarily apply for government because they're fine. I join the weekly CIS calls and contribute, but in my opinion, it's not strong enough for government customers. It's grim.
Right.
A lot of commercial and enterprises and personal systems. So, and that was always behind too.
Right.
So we had this problem where everybody had a new operating system, usually new hardware shipped with the operating system. And a lot of the time, organizations were left with either a roll their own,
Yeah.
or sometimes the organizations wouldn't allow the new operating system to be deployed until the guidance came out from a respected organization.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
this was the real problem that we were trying to solve at
Yeah.
that time then, is how do we get how do we get information out quicker? And somehow along the way, we decided, GitHub is going to be the way, that compliance should no longer be done with PDFs and documents, but people do like that. So we need to be able to create that. Um, and really, our initial thing was we just wanted to create a library of rule files with the YAML. Somehow we decided on YAML. I think if I remember right, it was just because this is very human readable versus
Yeah.
JSON is a little bit harder for people to read. XML is
Sure.
hard thing.
Yeah.
So it was really YAML was the choice at that time.
So, sorry to cut you off there, but could you also put some time into perspective? Like, could you tell me like what years?
Oh,
Maybe-
sure, definitely. So this was late summer of 2019 that we started
Okay.
talking and
Right.
meeting weekly, basically every Thursday morning, 10 to whenever we got off the phone, more or less, and worked on, like, initially just spinning up the
Right.
rules and starting to apply all the information. And then at some point, somebody said, we realized, like, having just a library of rule files would not be
Right.
enough, that we need to show what the power of these rules could do. And so the scripts we built were really just originally a proof of concept of what can you do with YAML files, but they've kind of, in the compliance project, they've kind of become a life of their own, and a main part of the whole thing that makes it so easy. But that is the coming way back to the problem. is we wanted compliance information faster, and we wanted it to be done the right way also, because a lot of the guidance also was using like defaults right on random plist files, or settings that didn't matter, or settings that didn't even exist in the operating system anymore. So let's take us who are actually actively managing the Macs in our organizations. We are the subject matter experts in our groups, and instead of the folks who are just writing policy, who actually are not managing them, so they don't know as well. And they did a fine job with what they were doing at the time. Uh, I'm friends with a lot of these people, uh, but it was time for the subject matter experts on the platform to actually be able to do this. And so that was basically it. Is Apple best practices and get it quicker.
Right. And yeah, and the reason I asked about the timeline is because, just to put things into perspective, also that it is just about, I think, the time of COVID is going to start,
Yeah.
and organizations really started caring over compliance. And, like, that brings me to my next question to you is like, how, like, do you notice that change? Like, before it being like a nice to have thing, like, sure, compliance, but now it's not just a government thing, right? So it's like
Yeah.
or enterprise requiring.
So I'll give some perspective on things with our timelines. So let me cover that real quick, and then I'll answer your question on the people, because yeah, I think it is important for people to understand. So we started meeting in 2019. We went public with the GitHub in June of 2020, and then did our first like full blown release. I think it was September of 2020 with Catalina. And then a month later, Big Sur came out, and we got that out uh, within a month. And since then, basically, as soon as the public beta drops, we create a branch and we start working on the new stuff. And usually we release within um, 3 to 5 days before the operating system, so that organizations are ready on day one with their compliance information if they want it. And this has worked great to get organizations, agencies within the US government upgrading to the new system in less than a month or so.
That's incredible.
So that gives a timeline, and we're in 2025, and our plan is the same thing for this next year, and just keep rocking and rolling every year, is be there and be ready.
That's incredible.
But so when was the compliance like the big
Right.
turn? I think a lot of this turned into there was I don't remember who got in trouble, but it's maybe it was the Winds hack,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
around then. Um, and it was just found that uh, I believe it's the FCC, no, the SEC, the Securities uh, Exchange.
Correct.
Yeah, they're gonna start laying down fines, they said, if we find that people are not, actually trying to be compliant with something. They
Right.
didn't even necessarily say that, like, but if you're not actively, like, trying to lock down to something,
Right.
right? And then you have more and more cyber breaches at schools, cyber insurance has risen,
Yeah.
uh, and because of all of that, there has been a great need of compliance. And from what our friends at Apple tell us, literally the place that they see this the most growing, the usage of the compliance project, is actually schools, because
Right.
they don't have a giant compliance department that can go through and do all this stuff. And with this, they're able to, say, I'm following CIS level 2 on our Macs, and then they get a check box from their cyber insurance, and are
Right.
good.
100%. And also there's been this thing around Mac OS, especially like Apple devices and especially Mac devices, is that from an IT admin perspective, not many people know how to manage it. And because everyone's coming from Windows, LAN, and oftentimes feel like, the unknown is is like an unknown quantity, obviously. And I think having compliance was kind of putting a lot of people at ease.
Yeah,
Notifying.
definitely. As I mean, right, whether it's due to the compliance project or what it might be, you're seeing Macs grow in environments, right? And you aren't necessarily seeing these organizations hiring Mac admins.
But
Um, so now the Windows admin has to understand all these things. Uh, and thankfully, because of the macOS security compliance project, we've made an easy way that people can, again, get their things set up and compliant, platform agnostic in terms of doesn't require what any specific MDM.
right. Yeah. And, like you mentioned SolarWinds, I have a personal story. I'll tell you after. But yeah, but around the same time, I was at a different organization. We were trying to do something within the compliance space, and that's when I really came across your project. Because I've been here, because I've been very connected in the Mac admin community, and I've been hearing about this GitHub project. And again, I was very dismissive at first. I'm like, if it's an open source project, how, like, sure, like there's a passion people doing this, but I didn't think it was kind of like sustainable or like to the point that where the project is today. Because again, this is back in late 2021, early 2022s. Um, but to my surprise, like you know, the project kind of proven. I think a lot of that again, kudos goes to you and the rest of the collaborators on the project. I mean, um, so I have another question here is according to you, like what is this, what is the most difficult part about this whole compliance?
Oh, I would say the well, I think the most difficult part actually is understanding what their requirement is asking, right? Now, we've done that translation with the project, which is great, but I think that is where the hardest part is, right? If you this project doesn't exist and somebody says we need to meet 853 moderate and you got to go through all of these things and here are what is an AC3 and a CM6 and a CM7 and like how do I meet these, like that can be really overwhelming. That is the auditors can kind of speak
Right.
this language, but usually the Mac admins cannot. um, and that I think is the most daunting and confusing part of the whole thing. At this point, in terms of what we're doing, I don't think there's anything that hard in terms of the compliance stuff like that. Thankfully, yeah, yeah, because now we're able to. We don't have HIPAA in the project. We'll just use that as an example because I'm not a HIPAA expert. I don't live in that world. So I don't. None of us want to take ownership of HIPAA because we are not from the HIP from a hospital setting or something. But I can, because of this project now, I can sort of read the HIPAA document and look at it and kind of understand what could meet these requirements.
Right.
So it's given me that ability to read that sort of compliance language.
Cool. That's awesome. Like, we're gonna come to, the conference that we've had and some of the announcements that you made during that time, because I really want to talk about that. And because to the many other people who weren't privileged enough to have the opportunity to come in person and listen to all the awesome stuff that you guys are working on. But on that vein, right? So you made it super easy on the macOS side because, like, this project, I strongly encourage for those who don't know about this Git project to try it. And Scalefusion definitely worked on, implemented the project, but even outside of an MDM, it can still leverage the project, to ensure compliance. Um, so my next question would be is why only Mac, and why do you hate Windows, man?
We haven't found the right Windows nerd. Uh, we we had tried to start it a while ago. We do want to try to recreate the recapture the lightning in a bottle sort of thing for the Linux platform for specifically Red Hat and Ubuntu.
Right.
I think we have the right people. We're on the right track. It's just going to um, be finding the right amount of time and uh, not pushing too hard because uh, it, when I go back and think, right, it was um, 9 months almost before we went really public with things and had something really working and refined. And I think we're trying to do we're we don't keep that in mind and or at least I'm not keeping that well in mind when working with the Linux folks as this is a slow process. It's not a sprint, it's more of a marathon.
Right. Cool. So on that note, when you just said looking back, because I feel like Steve Jobs once said, right? So you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And now, if you have to look backwards on this project as a whole, and what are some of the lessons that you've learned, and what are some of the things that you feel like you guys really accomplished with this whole project?
Um, so lessons learned, nobody reads. The amount and that's an unfortunate thing, but it's true also. I feel like we answer similar questions maybe once a week.
Yeah.
Right, and either it's in the macOS Mac admin Slack channel for the
Right.
macOS security compliance project where somebody could scroll up like 5 lines and probably get the answer, or it's in the description itself. Uh, so that's one thing, be it, but I mean, that is just in general, I think, people don't read the docs, right? And, uh, we have an idea to hopefully make it a little bit prettier. We'll be hosting like an actual sort of web page for through the GitHub soon.
Right.
So that may help walk people through things, and then they'll get a little bit more. The other thing is getting people to understand a benchmark versus a baseline, because every so often we'll get a message from somebody or a GitHub issue, and they'll say that I applied 853 and now I can't log into my computer. Your guys' project is terrible. Well, it's because they smart card enforce themselves and don't actually have smart cards, because they didn't really realize they don't have to apply everything, and they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
As well as like even if you want to apply everything, don't just smart card enforce yourself. Um, so that's a thing that we've really kind of learned, but I think both of those things were a little bit things that we thought of from the get go. Um, other lessons learned is I in a sense may be tired of saying sort of the same like here's how to do things, right?
Right.
Because I think like I've done this like 50 times. Everybody must have heard it already and be tired of it, but I don't think it ever gets too old because people will pick up something new that I don't even remember necessarily as like that special of a thing or something that's new that we can do with the project.
Awesome. Yeah. Along the same lines, I just wanted to ask, like, whose idea was that, or like, when did you guys think of the fact that you have to have a PDF? Like, it has to.
Yeah, so that was kind of early on when we started just bringing out these scripts as
Right.
NASA, Alan Goldberg, who was at NASA at the time, and they were using ASCII doc for their documentation, and ASCII doc can easily go PDF to HTML. So that was
Right.
actually the as soon as we had the generate guidance to a ASCII doctor, then it could go to basically anything. I mean, I think we could even go to like EPUB files.
Unless you want to put it on a Kindle.
Yeah, maybe somebody wants to read it. I don't know that way.
Yeah, that'd be cool. No, because the reason I asked that question is because that's an important part of a compliance workflow is having an auditor,
Yeah,
and they prefer a, a document to go through.
for sure. Yeah, so we met with an internal auditor
Oh, cool.
on our team here, and she was very adamant that she needed a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Right, needed that Excel document, and
Right.
so there's Python modules that can do that, so there we are, it's just once we I guess here's a lesson that we learned that I didn't even think of. Once it's text to text, and once you just realize, like, the new format, you can go to any text.
Correct. That's incredible. Because like you know, because within a Scale Fusion, right? So we looked at that PDF generation, and because we use our own because we had to brand it and do few attempts and next. But I personally was really impressed the fact that you guys thought about that because like that's an important part of the compliance workflow in general that people don't understand is like adhering yourself to a standard is important, but also there's an auditor. It's like who
Right,
like
it needs to be the documentation of what you've set.
correct. And you know, it's like even within the product, I'm a big proponent of the fact that we need reports, like in general. Like, and I'm like, hey, reporting is like a proof that
Yeah.
you've done your job, or here's what I've done, right? So reports are great because that tell you exactly what you're doing. And so when I saw that, that kind of struck to me as like, oh god, these guys actually thought that into head, which is awesome. So yeah, I that was incredible. And again, now looking back a little, around the same time frame, would you have changed anything without giving too much into 2.0, which we will get to? But like, would you have changed anything?
Um, mm, Not really. I'm sure maybe there could be something, but man, it has I think we've kind of stumbled into most things, like, the right way. Right? Because we didn't, like, sit down and make a list of, like, it needs to have a PDF. We just realized, "Oh, it needs to have documentation," right? And it was like, "Okay, well, we can do PDF, and we can do HTML." And the person said they need Excel. Okay, well, I'll do that now. And, like, somebody else said they needed, open doc format. Okay, I guess we'll figure that out. That kind of a thing, like, what can we do with this, right? So then that's how we're building out things, and then, um, yeah, because it's hit all the marks, I guess, right?
Yeah, no percent.
Yeah, it, I don't think that there's much that we would have changed. It's accomplished so much. It's accomplished way more than I've ever thought. With Apple, doesn't just acknowledge it. They have a page on their support that goes to it. They have 10 hours of training for it.
Yeah,
With, YouTube videos and training around it. You guys have built it into your product. Jamf has built it directly into Jamf Cloud. Workspace One is working on something. Adigi has it built in. Mobile has some bits of it. Like
yeah,
it's just overwhelming what's happened with it. It's just absolutely crazy what
right,
we accomplished. And we never set out to go, all right, we are going to do this and we are going to like conquer the whole world or something like that, right. And I think that's actually a great lesson. We built a tool that we wanted
right,
and that benefited other people. And that's sort of
right.
what it was is we needed this and probably other people needed it too. And there we go. And just not early on when we went public with it, we showed it to some security vendors and things like that and the auditing groups and stuff like that, tools. They kind of like didn't care. Which is fine, right? Like we had like 5 stars on GitHub or something. Like, of course, they're not gonna care. But
Right.
and so yeah, that could have been very discouraging
Sure.
and quit. But we didn't. And to just keep doing that. I think also to not be satisfied, right? I don't sit around and I don't even necessarily like to think too much of like what we've done, like because
Right.
then you'll probably sort of stop. Like, how can if I think about like the adoption, like how could I get better than this? Well, we have to. Like, it's just
Right.
we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and yeah,
Cool. I again, great job on that. Again, like you said, and definitely the license. Your GitHub project license was definitely super helpful for entities like ourselves, where we can, we can build. I think there was a slide at that event, which was like standing on the shoulders of the giant.
yeah,
Well, if in this case, you guys are the giant. For us, it's like there's a lot of players like us. We're building on top of the hard work that the entire team has built and done. Um, so on that note, like when did you really start seeing like an adoption for the GitHub? Like, the timeline of when that happened?
yeah. Um, I can't remember an exact time, but it was probably let's see, it would have been Catalina, and then Big Sur comes out, and then maybe it was sometime around Monterey. I think roughly when Apple really started acknowledging it publicly,
Right.
and then you start seeing some more blog posts talking about it.
Yeah.
I think that's when we call it like a 2021, 2022, somewhere.
Yeah. Sounds
Somewhere
right.
around, I think is where we started seeing some real growth level.
That's awesome. Yeah, because the reason I was asking that question is to point out the fact that how important compliance has become
Yeah.
in day to day. Because I still remember, back like even a couple of years ago, like the only few organizations required some kind of a compliancy programs and stuff, and it's primarily for some certification, and it's usually whatever, like a short timeline thing. But now, even at Scalefusion, when we talk to customers, one of the common thing we hear is that, hey, I want to be able to have, CIS compliance in the product, and that came kind of like a table stake stuff, and like people are expecting the products to do that today,
Yeah.
like, and so how do you see that as a thing? So do you think like making compliance that thing where everyone thinks they need? Because it can be double-edged sword, because now people, like you said, they could
Yeah.
be, putting themselves in a corner.
So I think some of that comes, right, like, if one product gets it, now next product has to get it, right?
Right.
Because now
Right.
hey, my neighbor, your neighbor can do it, why can't you kind of
Right.
why don't we have the easy button? Um, and a man on our team actually had sent some drawings that he had thought up, I don't know, in the like he had thought up this idea of like some easy buttons like that. Um, um, in like 2016, 2018 range, right? To some connections he had, and it never happened, but here it is today, right? Like what he kind of thought of. I think just the infrastructure, like the project or something to feed off of, wasn't there.
Right.
But yeah, I think as time goes on, at least in the Mac sphere of things, I think um, it's going to be definitely a requirement for MDMs, for the customers to look at them and want like that easy button. And um, I think companies are, if they're multi-platform, will, until we do something more, unfortunately, will have to build it out their own for Windows or Linuxes or whatever other systems that they support.
That's awesome. Thank you. So what that brings me to the conference, where
Yeah.
you're now working on the 2.0. So if you can.
So sure. So in March we had a macOS security compliance developer conference. So first, also for starters, I've never put on a conference before. I've never done anything like that.
That's great. That's amazing. I love it.
Apparently, I should have had like planning more than like 3 months out beforehand, because we really just went to the conference people in like late November to try to do this, and that was a little bit late
Right.
on their time frame. So lessons learned there. There's something I would have changed.
And who would have thought, doing events is hard.
Yeah. I mean, really, I just thought, let's get a handful of people in a room, right? And then it became, well, maybe we'll get like 20 people and then, well, maybe 50 people. All right, I guess we have to go with conference services once it gets beyond like whatever size it was.
Right.
So, so we have a macOS security compliance developer conference. This was now anybody listening to this that that is like, well, I didn't know about that. This was really, it was a public event, so in theory you could have come, but we really were advertising it for groups such as Scalefusion, Jamf, Microsoft with Intune, whoever, Tenable, whoever I had contacts with, I personally reached out to, and the idea was it was for developers.
Right.
So what we're working on now is a sort of MSCP 2.0. 1.0, the way that we are maintaining things is unsustainable for us for the long term. For those that aren't familiar with the project, we aren't really using GitHub the way GitHub is supposed to be. We are using each branch as a different operating system, and that came because we started with Catalina, and then we're like, oh, what are we gonna do, Big Sur? Do we combine it? Do we make like a folder? I don't know. Let's do a brand. Okay. Like, but then sure, let's do that. Like, I don't know. So we don't know the right way to do things. We're just kind of learning as we go along. And it worked out well, actually. Like, it kind of does make sense. But now that we do Mac OS, we do iOS, and we do Vision OS, and we do previous versions for them, it is growing. The number of branches is growing that we need to sustain is growing too much. Not to mention that programmatically for a group like Scalefusion, Jamf, whoever, it becomes a lot harder via like C code or Java or Ruby or whatever it is to manipulate Git repos. So MSCP 2.0, our biggest goal is to make it easier for developers by turning to one branch, a one branch thing where we would unify the rule files, because also AirDrop doesn't change over any of the operating systems, right? It's still the same thing. Why do we need, call it 9 copies of OS AirDrop disable when we could be setting it with and just having that metadata of the client's information and operating system within one rule file? So we are unifying to a one branch, unifying the rules themselves, building out some Python libraries so that it would be a little bit easier for people to build their own scripts, because right now we ourselves reinvent the wheel every time we have to build a new script, or I build some sort of thing to process them. So it'll be a lot easier for that. And yeah, so our timeline is we're sort of in a beta period of sorts right now, and we will the dev 2.0 will become the main branch come June of next year.
Right.
Kind of on our anniversary is the plan. And then our plan is macOS 27 would be only done with like the 2.0 format. So there won't be a macOS 27 grant. It would just be done dev. Well, what's lucky now is since they're all like that, we can just call it like dev 2.0 27 or something.
I know that's incredible. And the best part is like across all platforms like iOS and everything is just now here. So that's incredible.
Yeah. So that's what sort of macro. That's what the MSCP 2.0 really is going for. We really want to make it easier for the developers, because we made it very easy for the users, but not super easy for the developers that want to use the project.
Yeah, and also to everyone who's listening, that conference was particularly helpful for a lot of us who were there, because like folks such as Bob and the rest of the team, they were asking our inputs into it. So that was the whole intent for their conference, is to make sure that, because now we've built products on top of the project, they were very mindful of making any changes that could potentially be detrimental to us. So that was very thoughtful. And again, thank you so much for including us into that conversation, because I think,
Yeah, 'cause this has actually been something that we've been mulling over for almost 2 years, to be honest.
right.
Getting unsustainable. We need to go to a one branch, and I don't know why. Maybe we just realized we were big enough to have enough people in a room to make it worthwhile trying to like do something, or maybe it was just. Oh, I know somebody else at NIST who I talked to just threw out the idea of, why don't you do a conference? And I was like, what? I don't think anybody would come. And like people came from around the world, literally.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I've always been, I'll take blame and credit for putting the brakes. Usually I'm not a super conservative person in terms of changing on things. I'm willing to just break it and go forward. But I knew that this is a big enough thing where we needed to do it very slowly and mindfully, because of people like Jamf and Scalefusion and others, like literally spending thousands and millions, potentially millions of dollars investing in what we're doing, which again, like saying that out loud blows my mind. And saying that like people came from India, 12 hours on a plane to see us, to join us, like is like something that blows my mind. But yeah, we wanted to be very mindful of the vendors that are implementing it and not break it, what they've done, and give them plenty of time to build out, so that when macOS 27 is out, like you
Right.
had enough time. It's up to you. Sorry if you didn't make it at that point, but
Yeah. Hopefully next year, it's going to be, yeah. I don't want you to commit to it just yet, but again, I just want no pressure. Like you can start planning now so that you're ready for next year. That's something that you're doing. But that, again, that was a great fun conference, because again, and the beauty of like it was kind of like a mini Mac admin kind of event,
yeah,
to be honest. And it's always fun to meet Mac admins, because they're very everyone's in it to help each other.
yeah.
And nothing like, again, most, if not all, of the vendors out there have no problems taking the other person, giving them the credit, saying, hey, thank you so much for that, and helping each other. So I think that's the best part of all of us here.
It's so much if right, like what Scale Fusion can contribute or say, like
Right.
it benefits everybody and it benefits them, right? If we can make the project better, it helps you guys, right?
Yeah.
And probably makes it easier for the people in Tenable or some other product to do it.
Right.
So if we all act together and not as separate entities, it
Right.
definitely helps.
Yeah. Mm,
Uh-oh.
One more question. Trying to put you on the spot here. Um, when is macOS Tahoe support coming?
Well, they said that public beta will be in July, so that'll be when you'll see a GitHub branch within either a few hours or a few days. It depends on how busy we are at that time, but I don't think anybody's gonna be that cranky if it coming days versus hours for that.
No, but yeah. So, again, that was a cheeky question, because again, I know you guys are doing a great job, and we had to put something out there very quickly. And yeah, and obviously, we're looking at it from our perspective too, and trying to see how we can leverage whatever that you guys are going to be putting out and embed into our product. So I guess, just to wrap the whole conversation, then so the bottom line, hey, that's the name of the podcast. Um, so the bottom line is that compliance has become really the table stakes, and how and projects such as get this macOS this project, which can soon have to change your name, because now you'll be supporting Linux, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Well, I think it'll be a separate project
Right.
on NIST.
Yeah, maybe the name of the conference should be like security conference, but no. So again, the bottom line is the fact that compliance has become really a table stakes stuff that every organization needs to have requirements to support, and all products have to support that project. And by extension, I think now more than ever, it's very critical and heavily impactful the work that you do and the rest of the team is doing to that project. And anyone who's not familiar with the project should definitely have a look at the project and see in ways that they could contribute to improve that, and hopefully make it a bigger project than it already is. So
Yeah, no, there's always room to grow bigger. Yeah. If you don't know, it's github.com/usnistgov/macOS_security.
right.
And yeah, please open issues, file complaints, clone it, download it, do whatever.
Bob really loves when you ping him on on Mac Admin Slack and ask him the same question 20 times.
No, but in all seriousness, please, please join the conversation. The more, the better. Yeah, we're happy to answer anything, even when it's a repetitive one.
Awesome. Cool. With that, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. And this was a great conversation, and always lovely to see you, Bob. So
Thank you. Thank you, Moment. Yeah. Hope to see you in person soon again.
yeah, sounds good.
All right. Cool.
Bye.